Hello everybody, my name is Katherine Korte. Here is a lovely picture of myself, and I'm here today to present to you my action research. I am a secondary social studies teacher in the United States. My Twitter account is KorteCatSTL. If you have any questions after the presentation, I'd be happy to answer them via Twitter. The title of my project is The Road to Project-Based Learning. This story actually begins 2 years ago when I first attended an IRON conference in Doha, Qatar. It was my first exposure to international collaborative project-based learning, and it blew my mind away. It was like seeing the future of education, and I wanted to be a part of it. But what was happening is I work in an environment where there is many standardized, high-stakes standardized test courses. I teach government at the high school level in the United States, and in the school I work at, there are 3 major assessments for my students taking government. And I found myself teaching to the test, and after going to this Doha IRON conference, that wasn't good enough for me anymore. And I wanted to break the cycle of teaching to the test and be more authentic in the student learning and development of 21st century skills. So my long-term goal is 180 days of project-based learning, and that's not going to happen in 1 year or even 2 years. So I started doing cycles of action research. I first met Margaret Rael in Doha and sat in her action research session like you are today, and I was enthralled with the process and thought this would be an excellent avenue to achieve my goals. So I worked with Margaret and her team last year, and I flipped the classroom as my action research. So instead of lecturing to students on a daily basis, I would record lectures, much like I'm doing right now, send them home with the students, and they would learn the content at home. And in class, we would do the quote-unquote homework, which was more of the tangible learning aspects. So the writing, the analyzing, the collaboration, the communication, that was all happening in class. The results of the flipped classroom from last year's Cycle 1 action research was that I could do this new modality of learning. It would not hurt standardized test scores, and it would allow for more time to engage in project-based learning, which is then my Cycle 2 goal for this year was introducing project-based learning to the curriculum more deliberately. My question was, if I explore central unit concepts and skills through project-based learning, how will it affect students' understanding of those concepts and skills as measured by project reflections? So I decided to introduce deliberately and comprehensively a project into Unit 1. Unit 1 in the government class is all about introduction to government. What is government? What are the different forms of government? What's the relationship between government and the economy? And what is a citizen? The project in which students engaged in for the semester for this unit was this concept that it's the year 2050 and the US is attempting to colonize Mars. Their job was to create a colonial government using 4 perspectives: military, labor, business, and religion. I had 2 goals for this project. One was more expansive of content material, things like theocracy, republic, monarchy. And the other one was practice, collaboration, and understanding factors that influence perspective. So really skill acquisition, 21st century skill acquisition. My data was 68 students' project reflections. After reading these reflections and coding them, 4 major themes emerged from the data: collaboration, perspective, real world, and content. So collaboration was just defined as making a reference to working together and coming to a consensus, and 53% of students made a reference to collaborating. Perspective was 60% of students, and that was referencing one of 4 assigned roles, whether it was military, labor, business, or religion. Real world was defined as making a reference to how current or past political systems operate or were created, and 40% of students made some sort of reference to these real world positions. Last major theme was content at 41% of students, making a reference to specific conceptual knowledge from Unit 1, or making a reference to gaining understanding in content information. So what did the data mean for me? With the collaboration, I noticed two big points. One was high-performing students were more likely to comment on how they disliked mixed-level groups, feeling like they were carrying the brunt of the work. And interestingly, academically performing students were more likely to discuss difficulties in collaboration. So this led me to a couple of potential actions I could take next year in doing this project. One, since I have 4 sections of government, I could potentially divide up the classes. So I can do 2 classes in which there are mixed abilities projects and another 2 classes in which they are the same abilities and compare the results. Also, I could, prior to the start of this project, do workshops in collaboration skills so that lower achieving academic students can feel practice in collaboration, have the tools and resources necessary to feel successful in this project. Perspectives. It was interesting to note that students struggled identifying key issues that would be important to their assigned roles. And this was specifically evident with students who took on the religious role. They had a hard time understanding how religion and government could possibly work together. So in order to address this issue, I think next year a potential action would be to have the students first work in their roles. So have all the military roles group up first, all the religion, labor, so on and so forth, so they could create a stronger viewpoint and be able to advocate better for that position. Also, this is an opportunity to collaborate on the IRON network and introduce students to other political systems around the world and gain insights on perhaps how those perspectives could work within our scenario as well. The real world one was surprising for me. I wasn't really anticipating students to be able to take this scenario, this future scenario, and really apply it to today and to the past, and yet that's what kids were doing. So I think for the future, this was an asset. So I'm going to play up this concept more deliberately in the beginning to add authenticity to the assignment. Content. I was hoping to see more acquisition of content knowledge. As this chart shows, students really did not show any difference in test scores in the non-PBL group to the PBL group. There's a couple things that could be going on here. One is that these more complex skills, collaboration and perspective and connecting to the real world, are not tested on the Unit 1 test. So maybe that's why these scores didn't show the reflections of the student learning. Or 2, that maybe I need to be a little bit more proactive in assessing individual progress of the content knowledge during this project process. So why action research? Action research for me is the avenue through which I become an investigator of learning, my own learning and my students. I can take control over professional development and become an engaged and informed contributor to the education profession. My classroom and career excite me because I am on a continual quest for understanding the learning process, and I am equipped with the skills to analyze my part in this process and report my finding to other outstanding professionals such as yourself. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your conference. Bye-bye.